Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing how to create a beautiful beach-themed card using just one color palette. So if you've ever wanted to simplify your color choices without sacrificing that depth or dimension, this is going to be the perfect technique for you to try. All of my supplies will be linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. The products I'm going to be using today is the Beach Fun stamp set and the layered seashells stencil. For cardstock, I have an 80-pound white cardstock and the Seaside Cardstock from Spellbinders. For inks, I have the jet black ink from Lawn Fawn, and then Sea Glass and Turquoise Sea from Gina K Designs, along with a blending brush. And then I have a white acrylic spray for splatters. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick out the images that I want to use on the front of my project. I place them down on my 80-pound white cardstock. And if you haven't used your stamps yet, you're going to want to condition them either with a Versamark ink, like a clear embossing ink, or just by simply rubbing your hand over them. So I am inking mine up in the jet black ink, which is alcohol marker friendly. So now I am stamping the sentiment. I'm doing this separately and I'm stamping that in a Versafine ink. There is a coordinating die for this, so that way I can die cut everything out at once. Now I will be using some teal markers. I'm using Copic markers today to do my coloring, and the main colors that I'm going to be using is BG10, BG11, and BG32. Now you really can get away with just using maybe two of those colors in most of the projects. When it comes to things like the umbrella, I did want to bring in that third color for sure because it's a little easier for me to work with three colors when I have a larger area versus just two markers. I really wanted to keep the images light and airy, so I'm not going to overdo the shadow areas. I'm going to keep it fairly light and blend out with the remaining colors, especially here for that umbrella. I started with that BG32, went over it and extended out with the BG11, and then filled it in with the BG10. When I was originally planning out this card, I kind of took my markers and I swiped them on scratch cardstock and then compared them to colors of cardstock that I had in my collection. So that is something you do want to kind of test out before you actually come to your project is try and match your colors of markers with your cardstock in your collection if you want to do this monochromatic scheme. Using a monochromatic color scheme in card making is, for one, really easy and is a great way to create a cohesive and elegant design with very little effort. So, by working with different shades, tints, and even tones of a single color, you can add depth, contrast, and visual interest without worrying about color coordination. Now, it's especially effective for themed cards like beach themes, where a limited palette can invoke more of a specific mood, so such as calmness with the cool blues or warmth if we have some soft neutrals. So monochromatic designs are both striking and serene, making them perfect really for any occasion. Now you're going to see here that I did color in that star with a Y06. I colored the umbrella handle with an N2 Copic marker. And then I obviously am coloring my sandcastle with some tans. And that is E35, E33, and 31. So I guess I don't know if I'd want to call it a true monochromatic. I could definitely have colored that sandcastle in the teal color to really kind of show that across the entire card front. But my sandcastle is actually going to be right in the center of the card. So I thought that was a great way to kind of incorporate those colors into my design. Now, once I have everything colored in, I did take the coordinating die, line them up over the images and the sentiment, and ran them through my die cut machine. Next, I'm taking that Seaside cardstock and I put some repositionable tape on the back of that to temporarily secure that down to my work surface. And then I'm going to use the layered seashells stencil. So I'm starting with the first layer. They are labeled on the front of the stencil with A or B. The first layer has the most open area of the stencil. I held the stencil down with some washi tape. And then I'm going to start ink blending with sea glass ink. So I did test these inks out on some cardstock before I actually came to my project because different shades of teal can look differently on your cardstock. So I just kind of did a light wash of that color over it. It kind of gives it like a tone on tone or even a watermark effect. And then once I remove that first layer, I came in with the second layer. It's going to give us some subtle details to the seashells. And I went over that with Turquoise Sea, which is just a little bit darker. Next, I'm going to add some splatters to my background. So this is a white acrylic spray. You want to make sure you shake it up really well. I put some on my glass work surface, wet my paintbrush with some water, picked up that white spray, and then just splattered that on the background. I'm going to hit that with a heat tool really quick so that way I don't smear any of that when I start putting my card together. I have a side folding card base measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 that I just added some tape runner to the front of that. And then I'm going to place my panel over the top. Sometimes I will line it up when it's laying flat on my work surface. Other times I like to kind of stand it up and match the edges. For the sentiment, I die cut it out 2 more times from white cardstock. I'm adding liquid glue to the top of those pieces, and then I can pick up my stamped sentiment with my tweezers and just kind of pick up each of those layers and kind of wiggle them together so they line up perfectly. Now I can start putting my scene together. So I really wanted all of the images to be layered kind of behind one another. So I start by putting a little bit of tape behind the images, and I'm not pushing down when I'm securing this. It's just kind of lightly tacked at this point. This is going to allow me to move things around without it being permanently secured down. And there is kind of a trick you could use. You could kind of build your scene and then pick it up with press and seal, but I find this works almost better for me because it gives me a little bit more wiggle room to move things around. And I'm trying to keep my arrangement fairly balanced. Now, once I have that all put together, it is still lightly tacked together with that tape. I added foam tape behind it and placed it on the front of my card. So not only is that foam tape giving me that dimension, but it's also creating a little bit of separation between my monochromatic colored images and my monochromatic background. I added my sentiment right in front of my sandcastle, and then I'm putting my little star and seashell off on each side. I hope you enjoyed seeing how a monochromatic color palette, especially in these gorgeous teal tones, can bring a beach themed design to life. So if you found this video helpful or inspiring, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments if you've tried monochromatic cards before or if you're planning to try it now. I'd love to know. Here is another video I think you may enjoy.